All right, so here's the deal. I don't care if you're single, dating, or married. What I'm about to tell you, I really do believe and hope it will change your life. And this is actually in all types of relationships. So not just romantic ones. This is in family. This is parent to child. This is your best friends, employees, employers, all right? The number one killer of relationships, and arguably only killer of relationships, are misaligned values. It's the number one killer and arguably the only killer of all relationships are misaligned values. So going back to the question, how do you determine, when you're getting contradictory information, when it's both so good? Here's the deal. When you know your values, it is going to contradict.
Yeah.
There's no, it's going to sound good in packaging. It's going to sound life-giving.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I also want to be clear here, sometimes it's not so much a matter of right or wrong. Sometimes it's not a matter of this versus sin. Sometimes it's just not good for you.
Right.
Sometimes it's just not good for you as an individual and you as a couple. And so let me say it another way like this. The top 3 reasons for divorce is sex, money, communication. Obviously, it's not limited to, but those are the top 3 reasons, right? But and what?
And in-laws.
And then, yeah. Hey, real talk. All jokes aside, in-laws is a real thing, which is why these are things you have to talk about on the front end. But here's the deal: when a couple gets into a conversation or a disagreement or a fight, and we'll stick with the example of in-laws, right? So these are to be like, my sister always does X, Y, Z, right, to you, or your brother always does A, B, C, D, whatever it is, right? You're not having a disagreement or an argument over your in-laws.
Yeah.
You're having a disagreement or an argument over the values, because what it really is you're trying to explain to your spouse or your significant other or just your friend. Heck, we'll take out the romantic piece. You're trying to explain to that other party that this is something that I see, it matters to me. Why aren't you seeing this same thing? And so when you think about this, politics, religion, cultural background, all of that is actually rooted in values. All of it. You're not arguing actually so much from a political party as you are arguing about a value of a stance that you hold. So then the question becomes, well, how do we have the same values? And the answer is actually very simple. And I'm answering it 2 ways. If you're a Christian, this is the source. Period. So that was good. Period. Period. And so all that being said, how many times have you heard, and we probably said this with each other, we have said, that's not what I was taught.
That's not how I grew up.
That's not how I grew up,
yeah,
right?
That's not how mom and dad taught me.
That's not what I saw in the news or culture society, right? That's not my racial background.
I was going to say, for us, that's like a big thing, because like our cultural and racial background is so different. Like the way I grew up, I grew up very conservative, very Indian, very Asian household. And I ended up marrying this very American man. And so it's like trying to mesh those things, like, ooh, okay, like, oh, we different. We different. Okay.
So which basically is a reminder that when you're in a romantic relationship, or even when you're starting out a new friendship, like when, fellas, as you're developing like new friendship with other guys, and ladies are doing the same thing with ladies, what you're really trying to discern, here's where the uneasiness and discomfort comes from. You're trying to figure out, how can I come alongside people or find people that we're on the same playing field, And so, I'm feeling a little feisty right now.
Ooh.
All right, you ready? It is a lazy argument to say it didn't work out because we were too different. Your different personalities is not the reason why it didn't work out. Trust me when I say that, because we are different in every single assessment you can think of. Here's how I can prove this. Every single successful company, business, or organization, okay, in whatever genre you want to think of, right? So we can use Tesla, we can use Apple, we can think of sports teams. So let's go to the most obvious one, Michael Jordan and the Bulls. All right, you have Michael Jordan, you have Scottie Pippen, you have Steve Kerr, you have Dennis Rodman, and then you have Phil Jackson. All of their personalities are completely different. Every single one of them.
Oh, absolutely.
And you even heard people say, I don't know if Phil Jackson was the best coach of all time, or if he was a psychiatrist that just happened to be a coach because he knew how to manage personalities. And here's the point. As different as MJ, Pippen, and Robin, and all the other guys were, they had the same goal.
Yeah.
And not only did they have the same goal, they had the same values.
Yeah.
Not only did they have the same values, they had the same mission. They had the same vision, right? So the personality differences, to say, oh, we're just so different, that is not your issue. The differences is actually there to complement. All the most successful businesses and organizations, whether it's from sports to your Amazon of the world, whatever it is, they're as successful as they are because there are different personalities, but they have the same goal, the same mission, the same vision, and ultimately the same values.
Yeah.
So to say, oh, we're just too different, that's not why it didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work because you need to have aligned values, which means, again, as a Christian, these tell you your values. Mm-hmm. So we no longer get to say, this is how I was taught, this is how I was raised, this is my cultural background. All of that's my political stance. All of that becomes secondary to this.
Yeah.
But if you're a non-Christian, guess what? The Bible is actually optional for you. However, what I would say or ask you, if you are not a person of faith and you just want to have healthy, life-giving relationships, my encouragement to you would be, well, you need to discern what your values are.
Yeah.
And write them out. And so for us as Christians, we have value statements around these 5 things: lordship, marriage, family, work, and finances. And it can be a verse. So for example, our financial value statement is the 10-10-80 rule. We're going to give 10, we're going to save 10, live off 80. Because the scripture says it. We don't need to pray about it. We don't need to pray about anything that God's already spoken on. So that's just an example. Again, if you're a non-Christian or a non-believer, what is your anchor regarding your values? What sustains you? What holds you? Because not if, when you come across people or things in life, it will give you permission to say no what you need to say no to, and yes what you need to say yes to. So it's actually very easy to determine what's the contradicting information.
Yeah.
It's not going to come across that way though.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's not always bad versus good or sin versus righteousness. Sometimes it's not good for you.
Yeah.
So know your values. You got to know your values. If you're a Christian, the Bible has to determine your values. And if you're not, what is the thing that's going to anchor that?
Yeah. So, you just said it more nicely than I did. I was going to say, I know who I am. So when people give me advice and I'm like, that doesn't sound in line with what I believe of myself and what I believe God believes of me. So I use that as like a testing ground to be like, let me just wait it out, you know? Mm-hmm. And as you were speaking, like this imagery I had was like, I'm seeing like this beautiful wedding cake, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what social media is. Everyone wants to give like the latest, greatest advice on how great their, relationship goals and all of that. And I'm seeing like this multi-tier wedding cake, but what people don't realize is a lot, especially now with wedding costs being as high as it is, a lot of people are getting styrofoams and decorating it. And in the back, they have Sam's Club sheet cakes that they're cutting up and handing to their guests. And they're like, no one knows.
That is so funny.
So take and do with that what you will. So, because I think it is so easy to look at the microwave, instant relief, relationship resolution and being like, oh my gosh, look at their Instagram theme. It's so coordinated. Like they go on all these great vacations. So the advice they give is great, but honey, it's styrofoam and there is Sam's Club sheet cake in the back that they're cutting up. So do with that what you will.
Yeah.
And again, like the same thing for what happens when you have great advice from multiple people. I just test it with the Bible, man. I test it with what the scripture says. And again, I have a relationship with the Lord. He can speak to me. He has the authority to tell me no. He has the authority to check me. Mm-hmm. He has the authority to be like, I need you to notice this. And it is up to me to submit to that authority. That's
good.
So,
you use the S word. Submission. I do want to add one more thing. because it's very easy. I think we live in a world now where if you stand for this, then you're my enemy.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is, this is going back to the question. You might have 3 different views, right? Person A and B may not be saved. They may not be a Christian, and person C is. And guess what? Person A and B still might actually say something that lines up with biblical truth.
Mm-hmm.
And person C, who does identify as a Christian, might actually say something out of pocket. So all that being said, have enough wisdom. Just because someone may not identify as a person of faith does not mean that the Lord cannot reveal some truth through them.
Absolutely.
So again, it goes back to not just knowing your values, but knowing the word, and that no matter who's speaking to you, let's just say they say 5 things, right? 4 of them might be wrong, but don't discount the one. There might be one statement, one quote. My point is, have enough wisdom and give enough space for yourself as well as the other person to speak into it, in the sense that the Lord might still actually give you something. Mm-hmm. And it could be through an individual that you least expect. Mm-hmm. But like you said earlier, as long as that statement is tying back to a form of biblical truth, then keep it. And equally, don't dismiss a person just because, for whatever reason, and you might have a justified reason to not to care for their opinion or who they are as an individual. Don't discount that the Lord can still use them to share one element of biblical truth, even if it's not even the scripture itself. Yeah. And just as much the opposite. It might be someone who identifies as a Christian, but they're going to say something out of pocket. You're like, okay, I know you say you're XYZ, but
I mean, the Bible's laced with that, right?
Exactly.
God using kings who had nothing to do with him or the temple, and he used them to help, the children of Israel.
I think of the centurion when he met Jesus.
Or even, heck, Judas walked with Jesus.
Well,
and look what happened.
There you go. So Judas walked with Jesus. The centurion had met Jesus for the first time, and Jesus like, where's this person who want to be healed? The centurion's like, I know who you are. Can't you just do it right now? And Jesus like, yes. Yeah. Look at this man's faith. So yeah, absolutely. So all that being said, just have wisdom and give space to be able to discern. Let's not be so polarized and black and white. Dismiss the things that you know aren't biblical, and then take in the stuff that is, regardless of the source.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this, be sure to check out some of our other stuff on this page, or check out our podcast on Apple and Spotify. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. See you there.